Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Zevachim daf Samach Dalid. We're going to begin on Samach Dalid Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the top, where it says Shloish Devarim B'chul. So let's go back to our Mishnah that we learned yesterday and understand this, what we're talking about. So the Mishnah tells us that there was actually 3 things that were done on the corner of the Mizbech, the southwestern corner, and 3 of them were on the bottom and 3 of them were above. So the 3 which are on the bottom was the Chatas Of, the Hagashais, which is bringing the Mincha to the Mizbech, and the Shiri Adam and the leftover bloods. And on the top, on the southwestern corner, you had the Nisach HaYayin and Nisach HaMayim, which was for Sukkos, and then the Olas HaOf. Now, the Olas HaOf typically was in the southeast, as we mentioned, but if there was no space over there, because the Kohanim were busy doing all this other stuff, so then they could go to the southwest, preferably southeast, but if not, then they can go to the southwest. We'll see why that's preferable, so let's see the Gemara. So, Chatas Of. Had Amr, that we said already, that's where it's supposed to be, in the southwest. Hagasha istiksiv hagisha v'higisha el pnei mizbech, that they brought the mincha to the, it says v'havesas a mincha, that they would bring the mincha toward the mizbech, and that's where it was brought, specifically to the southwest corner. And then shiri hadam dechsev yeskol hadam hapar yishbach yisayim mizbech. It was poured on the Yisoid. So we learn out from these various psukim that that's where it's supposed to be. So let's look at Rashi. El Pnei HaMizbeach v'darshin el El. We learn out before, as Rashi says, the Akern Marabas Droimiskoi, that this was the southwest. El Yised Mizbeach, and we learn Ezmin Kaimin that Ridasum in the Kevesh, when it comes to going down from the ramp, which is most predominantly on the you're going down on the southwest corner. That's because you're taking all these right turns. When it comes to the outer chatas, so you should do this next to it, which is the hainusai droimi, that it should be by the southern droimi. Okay, and it says uvachol hadarom. As we said, there was only a yisod on one side and the other, and then only protruded an amma in each of the other directions. So there wasn't a yisod all around all 4 sides. Okay. So, anyway, that's how we know these are the 3 things that were done on the bottom. Milmala, above, was Nisach HaMayim, Nisach HaYayin, and Olas HaOf, Kishurabu b'Mizrach. When there was a lot of action, as we said, on the southeastern part of the Mizbeach, so then we would bring the Olas HaOf onto the southwest. So my time, why is southeast better? So, because Rabbi Yochanan, because the Beis HaDeshen, where we would throw a bunch of stuff, was actually on the southeastern side. So therefore, as we had to remove the gizzard and the feathers from the Olas HaOf, so it makes more sense that we should be doing this closer to the Beis HaDeshen. Rabbi Yochanan, Borei, come and see Kama Golo Koyachin Shel Kohanim. The Kohanim were very strong. Sheinacha Kal B'Oifos Yoser Memar B'Noitza. There was nothing lighter than the birds, more than the gizzard and the feathers. Sometimes they had to throw 30 amos. Why? Because again, if for whatever reason they're just too crowded, so they can't do the Olas HaOf in the southeast, so they'll go to the southwest, and then from the southwest they have to throw it all the way over, basically over the Kevesh, which is 30, which in itself was basically 32 amos. And they would have to throw it about 16 amos wide, but you have to throw it all the way to the Beis HaDeshen. Mibashleishim amma. Titnan. Notol machta shel kesef So he would take the machta, the fiery coals on the silver kli, the olo rosh mizbeach, and he would go to the top of the mizbeach, upina esagacholim elach elach, and he would remove the coals from here and from there. So says Rashi, this is referring to someone who is zoichet to the trumas hadeshen shel machta, that he would have to clean out all the coals, all the ashes. Noto machta shel kesef, so he had this kli of silver. V'ol rosh mizbeach, and he used to go and he would have to clean it on this side and that side, and that's what he did. V'chita min hamacholis hapanimius, and he would take it from the inner foods, and v'yored, and he would go down. Hagila ritzbo, once he hits the floor, Maser Panim Klapit Safa, and he goes north. V'haylach mizrachai shel kevesh, and he goes to the east of the ramp. Ke'eser amos, like 10. Savras and gecholim al gabi haritzba, and he covers up the coals from the floor. Rachak min kevesh shloish tvachim, 3 tvachim away. Malkum shenaisin mari b'naitze, that's the same place where again the gizzard and the feathers were thrown. The dishim is bech hapanimi b'menaira. Hani tfei matlas. So that's it. So you say Hani tfei matlasan l'chad havin. L'char, this is 31. It's bigger. So makam gavri l'choshev. We don't include the person himself, basically. Okay. Anyway, the point is, it was certainly very far. Question 13. Elu gilmul dvarim hayu nasim mikern d'roimus maravis. So he said the nisach hamayim, nisach hayan, and also when there's a lot going on the other side. Fine, that's that part of the question. And then 13 says, why don't we go all the way? Okay, fine, you're going all the way around. So go all the way around. So why do you have to go to the left? Why don't you do like everything else? So he says like this. Kol oyim mizbeach. This is the second answer. The second really part. If they just throw these two different parts in the same question. My time. The problem is that when it comes to this if it gets all smoky, then it could actually ruin it. It could actually passel. It can passel it, because as you're going all the way around, it's going to end up hitting the wine, and it could ruin the wine. Maybe not so much the water, but at least the wine. The oil sa'ov shematomos ba'ashan. So you have this oil sa'ov. Maybe it's going to die due to the smoke, and therefore we want to make sure it's that's not going to happen. Umidu, so Gemara asks a question. A person wants to go around the circumference of the mizbeach. Ma'ayin hu mascha. Where do you begin? So you begin mikern droimis mizrachis. You start with the southeast. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Southeast. Right, that makes sense because you go up the ramp and you turn right and you hit the southeast. Then Mizrachas Svinus, the northeast, and then Svinus Moravis, which is the northwest. Moravis Droimis, until finally you hit the southwest. So again, that's the correct answer. But here's what's interesting: it says Yain, which is mashma that even when it comes to the Yain Nesach, we do it this way, and we're not concerned that maybe it's not going to get all smoky and end up getting puzzled. So apparently it's not true. We don't go to the left. We go all the way around. So I'm Rabbi Yochanan, as we continue to south down the bays, hakafa b'regel. We're talking about hakafa with your feet. Says Rashi, v'ein hayayin b'yadai. And the wine is not in your hands. V'mitzvah ba'alma. And this is a mitzvah ba'alma. Minei shekoil ha'oilin l'shar devarim. Anyone who goes up for other matters, pointing min umakifin. You always turn to the right. V'zel lahakter oila lafikach makif v'vol makam shenichseim sham. V'nois lo yain l'nesach. But here we just want to be able to put it where it should be, which is right there. Shar kohanim shahazayche b'nechasim. Other kohanim are zayche b'fius with a lottery. Lo zachla v'ayda cheres. Oila v'hayayin biyado funnel l'smoil v'chayzer al ekev. So when it comes to a kohen that does the lottery, so Hitaka does as we say, he goes to the left. However, when we're talking about just stam, a person who's traveling, and this is a person who is being makter an oila, so he will go in that direction, and while he's doing that, then he can also bring the other stuff. However, if you were part of the lottery specifically for the Nesachim, so then you would go to the left. Okay. We give him the wine. So what does that mean, nice and low? It's mashma that he also had something else going on. And therefore, that's what's coming to tell you. Whenever you go up to the right. You go down the left, which is kind of interesting. That's actually how you're supposed to walk nowadays as well. First of all, our cars, we go on the right side. For England, it's the opposite for some reason. And also in Eretz Yisrael, we drive like the United States on the right. Also, when a person walks, you're supposed to always go to the right, always be on the right side. So it's interesting. Anyway, v'yordim derech smol, o derech mizrach. You begin going toward the east. V'yordim derech marav, to the west. Chutz min oil shosh devarim, those three things. Oil she'oilim derech marav, you go to the west. Yordim derech marav, and you also go down the same direction. Oil derech yimin, v'yordim derech yimin. You go to the right, and you come down to the right. Derech yimin, derech smoilhu. So we say, what do you mean? Go to the right, that's the left. So Ravina Tanis smoil. You're right, it means to the left. Your left. Omerabba Omer my yamin, yamin the mizbech. It means just the right of the mizbech. My small the gaver of the person. V'nisni o idi the mizbech, o idi the gaver kasha. It's not consistent that way, but it's not the biggest it's like a tiyuft or anything, but that's just the way it is. Okay. Let's see, maybe TA 14. Yep, this is a pretty straightforward, simple question. So let's get this down. So he said that typically, let's get this TA 14. Typically, when it comes to the oilus ha'of, so we go to the southeast, unless there are many people, and then we will go to the southwest. Let's see what it says here. Mizrachas droimus shekroivel beisadeshin. So we will do the southeast, and that's where you'll throw the gizzard and the feathers. However, there's a lot going on over there. Then we'll take it. We'll do it in the southwest corner. Okay, so technically it's supposed to southeast. Otherwise, you do it in the southwest. Okay, pretty straightforward. TB. 17. Okay, so this is the same question as TA 14. This is TB 17. Let's see what I wrote. Oisin es oilois oif bekern droimis mizrachis kivan shezeh samach beisadeshin abel im mali alach l'droimis maravis. Okay, good, beautiful. All right, let's keep on moving. Okay, so we have basically, we said we have a Mishnah and then a little piece of Gemara, then a very long Mishnah. So let's see this Mishnah. It says, Chatas oif ketzad hoisa nasis. So what's the din when it comes to the chatas oif? So we said when it comes to the olas oif, it's supposed to be done practically on the southeast, because there you have a base hadeshin there. So this is where you're supposed to do the olas ha'of, right? Technically, that's where we want the olas ha'of. And the chatas ha'of is actually on this side. You do the chatas ha'of on the southwest. Okay. So as we're going to see in a second. All right. Chatas of ketzad ha'yunasis. Ahol kevish v'adol l'sayv v'adol keren d'roimis mizrachis. So you're on the southeast. So you're on the southeast, right? And this is right when you go up the Mizbech, right away. Okay, right away. Just see one thing. What did they write? What did we write for 13? It said, okay. All right. So, let's get this down. So, bechatas oif, ketan hayanasis, okay, you're in the southeast. Hayamoylik es roisha mimul arpa. So you end up holding the bird, and you kill the bird by inserting your sharp nail into the back of the neck. However, eno mavdil. However, when it comes to specifically the chata sa'of, you don't separate it completely. It's only one siman is broken, and that's it. As opposed to the ola sa'of, which is mavdil. So we'll see that difference. Umazim edama el kir hamizbeach, and we sprinkle the blood on the wall of the mizbeach. Shiri hadam haya mismatzal yisoid, and then we take the leftover dam and we squeeze the bird, and the blood will go onto the yisod. Ve'en mizbeach el dama v'kulo kohanim. The only thing that goes on the mizbeach is the blood, and then the bird goes to the kohen. So this is by a chata sa'of. Tanaban. So the pasuk says, "V'hiza medam chatos al kir hamizbeach." You will sprinkle from the dam of the chatos onto the wall of the mizbeach. V'anisher bedam yimatzel yisod mizbeach chatosu, and then the leftovers is put onto the yisod. Tanaban. V'hiza medam chatos. So it says you sprinkle from the dam of the chatos is megufa chatos, directly from the bird itself. Because normally what happens is when it comes to a chatos at any behema, you do Kabbalah b'kli, and then you do halacha, and then you do zrika on the mizbech. But here you actually will you have to have the bird alive while you're about to do the avoda. That's why you don't want the smoke to kill it, right? So you kill it right there. Haketzad oiches b'roish, you hold it by the head, uveguf umaza al kir mizbech, v'lo al kir hakevesh. You don't put it on the ramp, v'lo al kir heichel, not in the walls of the into the heichel itself, v'lo al kir ulam, not in the ulam room. So ve'ezeh zekir hatachtoin. This is referring to the bottom part of the wall. So a chatas of typically a chatas is on the top of the mizbeach, is above the chatas sikra. Or when it comes to the chatas of, it's the opposite, is on the bottom. Oh, enu elu kir ha'elyoin. So v'dinu ma behema she'osol lamata chatasa lamala oif shola. So manach when it comes to a behema. Now when it comes to an ola, a carbon ola, which sounds strange, but an ola, the dam is on the bottom, and a chatas, the dam is on the top. So we see this when it comes to a behema. So maybe you would think the same thing. Of she'ola sulamala. So when it comes to an oila in which the dam is on the top, even though the ola behema is on the bottom, but when it comes to an oila sa'of, right, an oila sa'of, the dam is on the top. So edu din shechatas lamala. So maybe it's only when it comes dafka to oilus behema is on the bottom, but everything else is on the top. Talmud Leimer v'hanisher bedam yimatzel yisod mizbeach kir shahashirayin shaloi mismatzin liyasoid. It's this leftover blood drops down normally onto the aside. The ezuzeh zuzeh kir atachtain. So therefore we see that the din is that when it comes to a chatas, the dam is on the top, but the chatas of the dam is on the bottom. So it's kind of like everything's flipped. When it comes to an ola, olas behema, the dam is on the bottom. Olas chatas is on the top, not the top of the mizbeach, but it's above the chota sikra. And when it comes to the chatos, it's the opposite. The chatas is on the top, and the chatas of is on the bottom. So the nevid ma'aliyah v'hader nevid metatoi, do above and then do below. So Rabbi miksev yamtse. There's actually nekudos here. Yimatzeiksiv the memela mashma. It just happens. Okay. Amar Rav Zutra bar Tovia Omer Rav Keitzad moilkin chatas oif. Exactly, how do you hold the bird? So oiches gapo b'shtei etzbois. You should hold the wings by your 2 fingers. B'shtei raglayim b'shtei etzbois, and it's 2 feet with your other 2 fingers. Mutach tzavara al roichev gudoloi, and you should basically you're holding 2 fingers, or is holding one is holding this. The other 2 is holding the feet. Then you have the head, which is being held by your this other thumb. And then umolkoi, and then you'll be able to do the malika. So mamis nisatana sipra mulabar, from the back. Oiches gapa b'shtei etzba'os. Again, you hold it with 2 fingers. Ushtei reglaim b'shtei etzba'os. Umotach tzavara al roichev shtei etzba'os, and the neck is held by the width of the 2 fingers. Umoilik v'zu avodah kosher shebamikdash. This is a little bit confusing exactly how it's held, and this is actually very difficult. The most difficult avodah in the Beis Hamikdash was maliko. So zuhi v'suloi v'ika kamitza v'chfina. So elwa ema zu avodah kasha mi avodos kashos shebamikdash, which is 14. That there was actually 3 avodas which are hard, very hard. Malika, kamitza. Exactly what's difficult about the kamitza, has to be a certain measurement and everything. The chfina of the katiris of the Kohen Gadol was very specific, especially when he had to enter into the Kodesh HaKodashim, and he had his coals in his right hand, he had the spices in the left hand, and he wasn't allowed to put anything down. So what he had to do is he had to put the spices either in his hand like this, and he had to pour them into his hands. That's how it was put into the Kodesh HaKodashim. Or he had to put the spoon in his mouth, like the ladle, and then gently bend down and for it to fall in, but he couldn't have anything fall from it. So that was, the chfin certainly was difficult. Okay, let's see some or maybe all this Mishnah. Says Mastisen. So that's a chatasai. Oyos oif ketza nastis ola kevish upon l'sayv bol karen deramis mizrachis. So you go to the southeast. Okay, so that's the way to go, right? So you do that. You're in the southeast, which is just went up the mizbech, and then now you're in the southeastern corner. Now here it's different. When it comes to the oila sa'of, here you mamish have to cut it completely through, which is like both simanim. Umit says dama el kir mizbech, and then you would squeeze the blood onto the wall of the mizbech. Natos aroish, you take the head. The hikiv beis mulikasa mizbech, and you will take it to the mizbech. The safgai b'melach, and then you will put it with salt. The zarka gabi ishim, and then you throw it onto the fire. Bolo laguf v'heser es amara nesanaitza. So then you will remove the gizzard and the feathers, the esbeni hamoyim and the innards. V'hoitziu imam v'ashlichlo beis hadeshen, and it's thrown onto the beis hadeshen, as we see, which again is strategically in the southeastern corner, right? So that's the reason why we shecht over that. That's the right way to do it. Shisa v'lohiv. Let's say you ripped it open, but you didn't actually separate it into 2. You didn't cut both simanim, which might also, if you're supposed to, the im hivdil kosher. But if you did separate them, then it's kosher. Soifka b'melech v'zarka al gabe ishim. Again, then you would put salt on it and then throw it onto the fire. Lo heiser hamara v'lo hanoit. So let's say you didn't remove the innards, the feathers, right? Vesbene amayim, the all these things. Hayotzim imam v'lo safka b'melech. So it's also not problematic. Kol shishina ba mi'echad mi'acher shemitza as dama kshera. It's still going to be kosher. Okay. Hivdil b'chatas. So he said, when it comes to the chatas, you're not supposed to separate it. What if you actually did cut both simanim? V'lo hivdil b'oila, or for that matter, when it comes to the ha'of, you did not do both, which you're supposed to puzzle. So that's ma'akev. It has to be that the chatas of You did not do. You only did one siman. However, when it comes to the also, if you have to do both. Mitzvah Adam Haroish. Let's say you only squeeze out the blood from the head. Mitzvah Adam Haguf Psula, because how much blood is in the head? The ikr is the body of the animal, of the bird. Mitzvah Adam Haguf. Well, Mitzvah Adam Haroish Ksheira. On the other way around, if all you do is squeeze out the blood from the body, that's good. Chatas Oif. So we were talking about Chatas Oif. Now we're going back to Chatas Oif. Chatas Oif Shemalka Shul Shema. So we talked about Shchita Shul Shema in the beginning of this Masechta, way back, a couple months ago. So by Chatas Oif, let's say you do the Malika Shul Shema. Let's say there's a Rashi on this. No. Mitzvah Dama Shloshma. Let's say you squeeze the blood from the body Shloshma. Lishma Shlolishma. Let's say you had, it was Lishma, but also you had Shloshma intentions at the same time. Says Rashi Shloshman, Ein Moitzi Oila. Okay. Oy Shlolishma Lishma Psula. So it doesn't matter if your intention was correct first or second, it's psula. Or of course, if all you did was have a shlo shma machshava. Oilas ha'of, that's when it comes to the chatas ha'of. By the olas ha'of, if it was done shlo shma ksheira. Interesting. It's only, like as we saw in the Mishnah, in the beginning of the Masechta, there's an exception to a chatas and a carbon pesach bizmanai. However, when it comes to an oilas ha'of, if it was done shlo shma, it's kosher. Which is mamish the same thing when it comes to an oila. We said, at least according to the basic opinion of the Mishnah, that it's dafka by chatas, that it's psula. However, that's so too by chatas oif. Mashenkin by an oila sa'of, we say shul shma is kosher, which is not also l'shem chayim. Echad chatas oif, echad oila sa'of. By both of them, shemolkin, you did the malika properly, apparently. Mishemitz as daman. And you also squeezed out its blood, but it was echol davar shedarko echol, in order to eat something which is fit to eat. Lahaktir davar shedarko lahaktir, and it's something which your intention was to do the hakdaira. Chutzlim kaimo pasul ve'in bo karis. Chutzlis manoi pigol v'chayav v'lev karis. Uvovad sheyakrev hamatir k'mitzvasai. Only when the pigol is the problem and nothing else, as we said. So therefore, basically, you did everything correct. However, with shalol shma, that you had the intention of chutz l'zmanoi, or chutz l'mkaimo, which was pigol. But of course, zman, you lose time. That's why chutz l'zmano, you chayv kares. Ketzad karav hamatir k'mitzvatzoi. How would your makriv the matir properly? Molek b'shtika, but you did the malika without any machshava. Umitza hadam, and you sprinkle the blood chutz l'zmanoi, o shemolek chutz l'zmanoi. Umitza hadam b'shtika, o shemolek umitza hadam chutz l'zmanoi. Zeu shekar hamatir k'mitzvasai, because you did everything else properly. Ketzad lo kar hamatir k'mitzvasai. Mal chutz l'mkaimo. Let's say the malika was the intention of outside the place. Umitza hadam chutz l'zmanoi. So you had two different machshavas. One was chutz l'mkaimo, and for another one was chutz l'zmanoi. O shemol chutz l'zmano, umitza hadam chutz l'mkaimo. So you had, for two different actions, two different machshavas of pigel. One of chutz l'zmano, chutz l'mkaimo. O shemol umitza hadam chutz l'mkaimo. When it came to both the malika and the squeeze of the blood, both were chutz l'mkaimo. Says the Gemara Mishnah in Zevachim and Aleph, chatas oiv shemolka shlishma umitza hadam chutz l'zmano, which again is two things, right? Shlishma and chutz l'zmano. O shemol chutz l'zmano umitza hadam shlishma, right? Again, that's why it's only if that's the only thing wrong, but everything else is fine. Here, if there's two things, it's not going to be pigel. O shemol umitza hadam shlishma zeu shel kar v'matir k'mitzvasai. Fine. Lechoil, a person has the intention to eat kazayis b'chutz, kazayis l'machar, so a kazayis outside, and kazayis tomorrow, kazayis l'machar, kazayis b'chutz, kachatzi zayis b'chutz, half outside. Kachatzi zayis l'machar. Kachatzi zayis l'machar. Kachatzi zayis b'chutz. Posel v'ein bo karis. So even though you did mention zman, but since you also mentioned makoim, so there's no din karis. Maybe who does that klal? Im machshavas hazman. If the machshava of zman is kadmo machshavas hamakoim, pigul v'chayim will have karis. So you go after the first thing. If the first thing was zman, so there's karis. However, if the first thing was makom and then zman, possible ein bo karis. Either way, there's no karis. So we say that, let's say it was only half a shear, and a chatzi shear of eating, half a shear of haktara. So we say that achila and haktara are now mitzvah if they do not combine. Obviously, there's a lengthy Mishnah, and we're going to basically spend tomorrow's daf just dissecting this until we finish the parak, but we will, of course, stop there. Okay, so we saw question 14, the avodos, kashin, shemimikdash, malika, kamitz, and china. Question TA 15, maybe. We already saw TA 14. Heichen hay oisim oil sa'of. Okay. Ketzem molken chatas oif. Chaytech v'roiv basar imo. Mate chaytech as roiv basar. I think that's going to be for tomorrow. Fine. And TB 18 is the exact same question. We'll have to wait until tomorrow's daf to see that. Adkan.